Hello, monsters. Come and play with us. Forever and ever and ever. Thanks for tuning in to Murder Murder News, the true crime cult for the latest breaking news, murdery memes, TV reviews, podcast recommendations, and all things spooky. It's Spooky Halloween, and we want you to join our cult where we'll sit around telling ghost stories, maybe summon some demons, and dance around the fire with our mascot, Black Phillip. I'm television's Aurora Katie.
Hey, it's me, your online murder friend, Angelina. Cults are no fun alone, so don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and tell all of your true crime friends to join the commune at murdermurder.news. This is the Week in True Crime Halloween Special.
We are going to take a break from our usual true crime update to share the real stories behind urban legends, and we've invited some friends to share their scary stories as well. Submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society, Zozo the Ouija Board Demon, and Bloody Mary.
You must have heard of the phenomenon where the demon Zozo takes over your Ouija board and subsequently enters your home and possibly your body through the portal you've opened between ours and the dark realm using your Ouija board. You open up your Ouija board for a night of harmless fun with your friends, hoping for a quick chat with a dead relative or maybe some new details about the history of your house. But instead, the planchette starts doing figure eights and then rapidly cycles back and forth between two letters. Oh my God. Z-O, Z-O, Z-O. And now you're in for a world of hurt as Zozo psychologically manipulates you while moving around furniture and slamming doors. Some folks claim Zozo brought grave illnesses upon their family or tried to drown them in the bathtub as he continued to haunt them for weeks or even years after their first contact with the demon. The story has weaved its way through creepy subcultures and the internet, and perhaps that's where it was born. Like Slenderman and the other creepypastas, Zozo has infiltrated our culture as a dark meme that keeps us up late at night reading stories on Reddit that haunt our nightmares. To date, hundreds of people have shared their personal accounts with Zozo, but trying to dig into the demon's history, it seems there was near zero evidence of his name ever gracing a Google search prior to 2009. That was the year that Darren Evans posted his story to a website called True Ghost Tales. He went on to create his own website collecting stories about personal accounts with Zozo, and it took off. In 2012, a feature film, I Am Zozo, was made, and it featured Darren Evans. The promo video created for the film is still circulating online, and commenters argue that the video titled Scariest Ouija Board Demon Zozo Possessed Girl is genuine footage of a Zozo encounter. It's all reminiscent of the Phillip experiment, in which researchers invented a dead boy and then had participants hold a seance. They reported poltergeist activity, haunting noises, and communication with the fictitious Philip Aylesford himself. The researchers concluded that the human mind can, in fact, create spirits on its own will simply through a bit of persuasion and imagination. You have to admit, Zozo is a catchy name, and it's a fun story to try to recreate at home with your own Ouija board. Darren Evans went on to make some very memorable appearances on the TV shows Paranormal Witness and Ghost Adventures. Zozo has been talked about on countless YouTube videos and on podcasts like Ghosts in the Burbs. The Montreal-based podcast, Two Meuniers, refers to 2020 as L'an Zozo, or the Year of Zozo. And with the year we've had, it's pretty fitting. Any real history that fans try to connect to Zozo seems to be unsubstantiated, except for one reference to Zozo in a French book from 1818, Le Dictionnaire Infernal. Though the text speaks of a girl who claimed to be possessed by a demon named Zozo, among other demons. Its author was a skeptic who noted that the girl was eventually imprisoned for fabricating stories. Other attempts at recounting historical Zozo encounters are often just confused with another demon, Pazuzu. It would seem Zozo's true origin lies in internet lore. But of course it's not uncharacteristic of a demon to disappear for hundreds of years only to show up and terrorize folks again. And I wouldn't be surprised if Zozo was in fact just another demon like Pazuzu trying to pull one over on us all. Regardless, Zozo has weaved himself into the fabric of our creepy culture, and it's still something to keep an eye on even if you're a skeptic. Don't forget Slender Man started as a creepypasta and inspired a very real murder. And don't get me started on Pazuzu. The true history of the Ouija board is also rather dark and unusual. All I'll say for the moment is my favorite fact, that the original Ouija board named itself. We'll post some links below so you can go down your own rabbit hole of talking boards and demonology. Do you believe in the legend? Let us know in the comments below.
Legend has it that if you are brave enough, you can summon the spirit of Bloody Mary by chanting her name in front of a mirror 13 times. To call Bloody Mary, you must first enter a pitch black room at midnight. Bring only a candle to light her face and block out all the light trickling into the room. Now, light your candle, look deep into the mirror, and chant her name. Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. Some legends say 3 times, some say 13. Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. So who is Bloody Mary anyway, and why is summoning her spirit a tradition of childhood sleepovers? Certainly this legend has been around for hundreds of years, and the spirit of Mary has been around for even longer. Nope. It appears that Bloody Mary became popular in the US in the 1970s, and it's pretty unclear who Bloody Mary even is. According to folklorist Janet Langlois, it's possible she is the spirit of Mary Worth, who was supposedly burned at the Salem witch trials. I couldn't find any record of an actual person named Mary Worth at the Salem trials, so it's possible she's a fictional character as well. Hey, we didn't have Wikipedia in the 1970s, so kids had to get creative. The spirit has also been tied to a woman named Mary Wales, who died in a bloody car crash, or perhaps disappeared as a hitchhiker. Some have tied the idea of Bloody Mary to Mary Tudor, the Queen of England, who was known as Bloody Mary, for the execution she carried out against the Protestants to try to restore Catholicism in England. It sounds like the entire tale is just made up, but we don't want to let that stop you from summoning your very own demon the next time you go to sleepover. We scoured Reddit for Bloody Mary horror stories of possession and poltergeist, but came up pretty empty-handed. Summer Rose shared a story that they once tried to summon Mary in 8th grade with their brother. The brother started to say Bloody Mary 3 times before they got scared and asked him to stop. When their brother turned around to leave the room, the mirror bolts came off the wall and the mirror just fell off. Another Redditor, Churn, tried to summon Mary once with a bunch of kids and their older sister. On the 6th time invoking her name, their older sister turned around with flashlight lit under her chin so she looked like the devil. All the younger kids ran out screaming. Have you ever summoned Bloody Mary? We want to hear your stories in the comments below.
Hey, this is Jill from the Small Foreign Fact Check podcast. When you're done listening to everybody's scary Halloween stories, I hope you'll come by the podcast for some spooky, true crime, and mystery content. This Halloween season, I wanted to share with you all my scariest Halloween story. So to understand this story, you need to first understand a little bit about my childhood home. I lived in a residential neighborhood, but I had a church directly behind my house, and we shared this long driveway easement with them. So instead of having a neighbor directly next to us, we had this long driveway that the church would use to exit after their services. So when the church wasn't in service, there was a gate at the end of the driveway that blocked the exit. But the whole neighborhood knew about this gate and that it was easy to hop. And so you would see teenagers hopping the fence and basically walking up from behind our house to get to the street. So it really wasn't a big deal. So this Halloween, I was probably like 8 or 9, and I was waiting for my mom to get ready. My mom takes forever to get ready. So I was just waiting. She had me set up at the front door with the candy to give out candy to trick-or-treaters while I waited. So while I'm waiting, I see a figure come up from the gate. And at first I don't think anything of it because it's Halloween. So I see the figure walk up, and then they turn right and head towards our door. And again, I just don't think anything of it because it's Halloween. As they approach, I see that the figure is wearing a long gray trench coat and a Mike Myers mask. And they have what looks like a butcher's knife. So as they approach, I get more nervous and more nervous. And I actually try to extend the bowl to them to see if they wanted candy. And they don't break their stride, and instead they keep coming at me. And so I freaked out, and I turned around and I ran back inside. And I was screaming, and I'm running around the house, and the figure follows me in. So I'm now being chased in the house by somebody in a Mike Myers mask with a butcher's knife. And I'm screaming, and I can't find my mom anywhere. It's like a scene straight out of a horror film. And I do the one thing you're not supposed to do, which is I run to the back of the house where there is no exit, and instead of going to the back door. So I'm screaming, I'm looking for my mom. I try to hide in the bathroom, but for some reason the bathroom door is locked, and so I end up cornered at the end of a hallway. And so I remember just collapsing to the floor, just crying, screaming. I really thought that I was going to die. And so the figure closes in on me slowly, and as they're over me with their butcher's knife, in my last moments before I think I'm gonna die, I look down and I see that the figure is wearing the exact same Halloween socks that my mom had been wearing that day. And so I managed to squeak out, "Mom?" And my mom takes off the mask, laughing harder than I've ever seen her laugh in my entire life. This is super fun thing she did. To this day, she admits that she did that, but she vehemently denies having a butcher's knife. I mean, that's kind of the thing that you remember. And I'm gonna say that she had a butcher's knife. So, that was fun. Unrelated to that story, that house was extremely haunted. But maybe we'll get to talk about that next year. Thanks for listening, and happy Halloween.
Hey everyone, it's Paola from Undercover Coven. Undercover Coven is a true crime and paranormal podcast, but we also go into aliens and the occult and UFOs and, everything having to do with spooky things in this world. And we also like to laugh a lot. So if you're into that, you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Murder News was kind enough to let me tell you guys a scary story, so here we go. I bought a new house in the small town of Winthrop. The house was cheap, but the most important part was that I needed to get away from the city. A few months ago, I had a run-in with a stalker. While I had managed to get him arrested, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes just constantly watching me. I felt like there were eyes everywhere, at home and on the street, so I decided to move out into the country to somewhere with less people, just for peace of mind. The house itself was big and somewhat old, but otherwise very welcoming. The agent who introduced me to the house had been required to mention that a serial killer had lived here in the past, which was why the house was so cheap. However, he, and later my next door neighbor Sarah, both told me to pay the thought no mind. 4 other owners had lived in the house since then, and all were very happy with it. I love the house. Its interior furnishings were very beautiful and very comfortable. The people of Winthrop were friendly, often bringing over freshly baked pastries or inviting me over for dinner. Get-togethers, they said, were the key to making sure everyone who lived in Winthrop loved it there. Yet after a week, I stopped loving it. The feeling of someone watching returned, worse than before. I tried to ignore it, but soon I started losing sleep. Giant bags grew under my eyes, and I began yawning almost as much as I breathed. Sarah was kind enough to let me stay in her house for a few nights. It was during this time that I heard the legend of Forrest Carter, the serial killer who had lived in my house. While no one knows his exact kill count, Carter, also known as the Winthrop peacock, was a man with an extremely severe case of narcissism. Legends say that he couldn't fall asleep if he didn't feel that he was being watched. He was finally arrested for putting up a scarecrow to watch him during the night, only it wasn't a scarecrow. Carter had murdered a 17-year-old girl, just so her corpse could stare at him. The story gave me shivers, and after I went home, I felt like there were hundreds of pairs of eyes just watching me, no matter where I turned. Today, however, was the first day that I acted out. I was cooking breakfast when I felt the eyes. Instinctively, out of fear, I threw my kitchen knife, which lodged itself into the wall. As I pulled it out, I found myself staring at a pair of eyes, pickling in formaldehyde. I've been watching the police peel away the drywall of my house for hours now. So far, they've found 142 pairs of eyes in little glass jars. The scariest thing is, each and every one of them was staring at me.
Hi everyone, my name is Liz and this is Emily. We are co-hosts of true crime podcast, That's a Bad Sign. Every week we get together and have some cocktails and we each tell the story of a crime. We like to keep things lighthearted with some jokes, but we're not really here for the chit-chat, so we mostly like to stick to the stories.
Yes, so on that note, we want to tell you something that happened in our hometown of Garden City, New York. So we grew up on Long Island, and our town's about 30 minutes outside of New York City, and this is unfortunately the story of a family annihilator. So for people who don't know what that is, a family annihilator is when typically a man, a father figure, murders his entire family and sometimes himself. There's two different cases of this. One is a man who has a history of violence and abuse towards his family and takes it a step too far. And then the other side, which is what happened in our town, is when a man who has no pattern of abuse or violence, but usually a financial ruin drives him over the edge to commit this crime.
Yeah, so it's not extremely common, but if the male is the breadwinner in the family and he's experiencing a huge financial loss, that will completely destroy the family's life and lifestyle. Rather than trying to come to terms with it and come clean with his family and his spouse and try to move on that way, he will instead murder his entire family and oftentimes himself, so that nobody has to deal with the aftermath.
Yeah, so who did that in our town, his name was Parente. He was a New York real estate attorney, and he had a lot of sketchy business dealings, and at one point the FBI was investigating him for $20 million worth of fraud. He also had a wife, Betty, and an older daughter, Stephanie, who is 19 years old, who was in college in Maryland, and a younger daughter, Catherine, who was only 11 in middle school. So no one knows exactly what the chain of events was, but they do assume that it took place when the family decided to do a surprise trip to Maryland to visit their older daughter.
Yeah, so once they get to Maryland, they get to their hotel room. William is alone in the hotel room with his wife. So he takes that opportunity to hit her over the head and then strangle her to death. Then his 11-year-old daughter enters the room and he does the exact same thing to her. So finally, he calls his 19-year-old daughter that he was there to visit. He asks her if she can come meet the family at the hotel before they go and start their day together. So she comes to the hotel room and he ends up hitting her over the head and strangling her the same exact way to his other daughter and his wife.
Yeah, and then after murdering his 3 family members, he slits his wrist and kills himself. So his daughter's friends knew that the family was visiting, and they noticed when she didn't come home, so they did call the hotel staff. They also noticed when she wasn't back the following morning for class, so they got the school involved, and that led to the school calling the hotel and the staff coming in and finding the family.
Yeah, so we didn't know if we were actually going to tell this story because it's truly the most horrific thing that's ever happened in our town, but we just thought we should get it out there.
Yeah, and I also think I think there's like two major things I want to call out on the story. Is one, you truly never know what's happening with a family, and they might seem picture perfect and be from, a really wealthy town, but at the end of the day, you don't understand what's happening behind closed doors. And the other thing I want to call out is the daughter's friends, who knew that their friend was with the family, but when the friend never came home, them deciding to try to get a hold of her and doing what they can. I just think that was, they went with their gut. It was a really smart move on their part.
Exactly. So that's what I think is kind of the moral of the story here is if you ever find yourself in a situation where something just doesn't feel right to you, don't ever feel like you can't either ask for help or say no to something. Really just go with your gut, because if something doesn't feel right to you, you're probably right.
Yeah, I agree with that. We end there. Just want to thank Murder News for having us tell our story. Again, if you're interested in hearing about crimes like these, we have a true crime podcast called That's a Bad Sign. We put out episodes every Thursday. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts.
We hope you give us a listen. Thanks.
Bye.
All October long, we've been watching spooky but not scary Halloween classics to celebrate the season. There's nothing more comforting than a slice of pumpkin pie, a cup of hot cocoa, and a movie marathon featuring our festive favorites like The Craft, The Addams Family, and It's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown. We have 31 movie selections, one for each day of October, in our calendar, which you can find wherever you get your murder news, on our website or on our social media pages. This week, we watched Beetlejuice, which is one of my faves to replay every year. It always reminds me just how amazing Catherine O'Hara is. And we also watched The Love Witch, which is a really gorgeous movie that I had never heard of until I saw Aurora's Love Witch-inspired makeup look on our episode last week. You still have time to watch along with us for our last couple of picks, so head to murdermurder.news and check out the full calendar to start planning your movie night.
We are so pleased to shower two very special monsters with a myriad of murder merch. And these two monsters are our contest winners for our big fall giveaway. Drum roll, please. The US winner of our giveaway is Heather Gordon. And the winner of our Canadian giveaway is Fanny the Ball Daguerre. Thank you so much, everyone who entered. And Heather and Fanny, please tag us in all of your Insta photos using your new murder mugs.
Thanks so much for tuning into This Week in True Crime with Murder News. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button below, give us a thumbs up, and tell all of your true crime friends.
Come join our commune at murdermurder.news, and for just $5 a month, you can help keep the true crime lights on. Along with helping support Murder News, your membership also gets you access to our site with cold case solving groups and book club. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. See you next week.